That should be good.
Okay, welcome everybody. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the future of education in the ACT. I'm going to be sharing what is the future of education conversation. I'm going to be talking about who's getting involved with the future of education conversation, as well as the way that we are going to work with our community at Gold Creek School to capture our community voice around the future of education in the ACT. So firstly, I want to outline that the future of education is really about a community consultation initiated by the ACT government to capture community voice around what we want education to look like in ACT as a whole, not just in public schools but across the board. It really is about engaging active participation through a consultation process with our community. The information that's captured will form a blueprint for the future of education well into our future. And whilst it has been initiated by the ACT government, it involves both education and other community services directorates, working together to really look at what's best for students that go to school in the ACT. It also recognises, I guess, the need for education in the ACT to be adaptable and flexible to meet the needs of the future, really, and what that looks like. But maintaining, I guess, the high performance as a jurisdiction nationally. So I think that's, encompasses everything around that consultation, and it's the reasons for it moving forward to design an action plan, I guess, fit for purpose for the future. So who really is involved in that consultation process? Again, initiated by the ACT government, they're really going very wide as part of this consultation process, and Gold Creek School is a small part of that consultation. They're going out to community groups, they are going out to local industries, universities, non-government schools, as well as our government schools in the ACT, and they will be facilitating conversation with all of those stakeholders starting probably a month ago and probably into the next few months, and gathering all the information to form this blueprint. So how do you get involved as someone that is a part of the Gold Creek School community? And again, it's around capturing everyone's voice in this community, parents, students, teachers and other community members that may be interested. And the school has established a Future of Education action team that has looked at different methodologies to really, I guess, get your opinions around what you would like to see happen in education in the ACT. Some of the particular methodologies for facilitating this conversation is going to come through a Google survey that will be emailed out, and that will be emailed out to teachers, to senior site students, as well as our parent community. For some of our younger students, we're going to be sending out postcards so that they can write and draw and capture what they would like to see in terms of education. On our senior site campus, we're going to be putting graffiti walls in the next week on big bits of butcher's paper in every tutor group class, so students can actually contribute their ideas. And another method is on the junior site. We're going to use a prototyping experience for our very early years, where they're actually going to have a question and they're going to build a response or create a picture or a diagram to show how they feel about schooling you know, where they're at this particular point in time. And of course, we've got the PNC live feed, which please put any questions that you may have or any thoughts around how you would like our education in the ACT, the provision, the service provided, what you would like to see into the future. Add those comments through this live feed. For those parents that do drop off and pick up on the junior site, our student leadership are going to be asking questions and videoing responses to submit as part of the conversation as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get engaged through the Gold Creek School community. Any other general comments around the future of education conversation can be fed through various social medias. We have the website yoursay.act.gov.au, in which you can contribute any of your ideas. You can look up at ACT Public Schools on Facebook, or ACT Education through Twitter, and ACT Public Schools through Instagram to contribute any ideas generally. Today, however, what I would like to discuss is more specific, and through this discussion I'll leave you with a few questions to think about and how that impacts on your child's education and what you would like to see down the future for any students coming through schools in the ACT. So today I really want to talk about this idea of equality versus equity in education. And it's something that has been coming up a lot in a lot of the recent research, and especially, I guess, quite important given the debate around the Gonski funding model. Firstly, what I'll talk about is, well, what is equality and what is equity, and ask you to think about what that looks like in education. So equality is really about the same. It's about everyone getting the same thing. And it really is, it only really works if everyone starts at the same point. So if you compare that notion to equity, equity is about fairness. And we hear that often with our children. It's just not fair. But if we think about in the context of education, and obviously a lot of things that have been happening within the government recently, equity is about access to the same opportunities. And I guess what's important in that notion is that we must first ensure equity before we can get equality. And so I guess that really is about putting provisions in place to get everyone on the same playing field in order to move forward. So if we think about equality and equity in education, and especially with this Gonski funding model, a needs-based funding model, in terms of funding education, certainly we are sort of moving into more of an equity sort of frame in terms of education. So what I'd like you to think about is, from your perspective, what are your views on, is one more important than the other? Do we need to focus on equity and then move into this notion of equality? Does equality only apply to certain things in education but maybe not others? How do you feel about funding going to some students and not others? How would that impact your choices for your child's education? And reflect on this, I guess, as we move through a lot of our conversations when you videoed or there's a survey that comes home, thinking about this as part of providing your feedback. Have any questions, anyone?
No, I think it's all fairly promising and self-explanatory so far. The question of equality versus equity is an interesting one, and it depends on how you frame equality and equity. There's an image that goes around the web, it's been going around for years and years now, of equality versus equity being, I'll put it in the comments shortly, but this one here, I don't know if you've seen, there we go, exactly that one there. And yeah, it's pretty easy to see from that.
I don't know if I've got it framed.
Yeah, that's right, I'll put it in the comments as well in colour. And yeah, it's so when you see funding being distributed to those who need it, it's hard to argue against that. There's obviously pros and cons to every solution, but no, I think it's interesting so far.
And I think when we talk about equity versus equality, and we think about access to quality early years education, I mean, the ACT really lead the way in terms of providing 15 hours of free preschool education, and not all jurisdictions nationally provide this, but there's often debate over whether this will remain as part of the funding model. And, you know, I'd be very interested in sharing with the government as part of the future education discussion your thoughts around the importance of access to quality early years education and continuing or maybe, you know, investing elsewhere, and how do we ensure that there is equity of access to that early years education. So if you could contribute your ideas around the notion of that access to early years education, that would be great. I guess another element that we need to look at is, well, what do we want our schools to look like in the future? Do we want schools where we have choice and we maybe don't have priority enrolment areas? Or do we need to keep our priority enrolment areas and look at what schools offer and making sure that they have wide offerings in schools? Thinking about what school is going to need to be in 20 years' time, and ensuring that our blueprint will meet the needs of what we need in 20 years' time, the type of education students will need to be successful when they finish school. So if we can think about that and make some comments on that. And I guess finally, really starting to think about, well, what is a great education? Have we got a system here in Australia in the ACT that provides that great education? How does that compare to other countries and the style of education and the successes they're having in the way that we go about educating our students, your children? So if you have any ideas in there, please share them through the live feed. Any ideas, any comments in this forum?
Being a P to 10 school, a student starting in preschool or kindergarten here will have different needs than a student, but then 10 years later, by the time they're in year 10 and finishing and about to go to college in the rest of the world. So something you said earlier, adaptability, that's important even in the career of a single student. The space of 10 years is huge, and the advances that will happen are huge, and the new jobs that will be around is huge. So I think it's important that it's a constant revision, constant reassessment to make sure that we're doing the best, across the whole spectrum.
And I think this whole the future of education discussion is really providing the community with that opportunity now to engage in that process. And whilst there will be reflections that take place over the course of time, you know, this is the first time probably in the next decade that the community will get the opportunity to really engage actively in this discussion. So yeah, please put your ideas forward, because every idea or every suggestion or every complaint about what we don't like will help guide us in creating a blueprint for the future. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments here?
Sounds great. All right. Thanks.